Welcome to our channel. Imagine waking up in a shipping container and suddenly finding yourself mistaken as the fiancé of a glamorous alien princess. Sounds wild, doesn't it? But that's exactly what happens to Jonah Park, a humble cargo worker from Earth who accidentally lands on the luxury planet Arvenia. By the end of this story, Jonah and Lady Kathira face an explosive confrontation at a masquerade ball, forcing Kathira to boldly defy tradition in front of the entire galaxy. Curious about how Jonah gets caught up in this interstellar love scandal? Listen to the whole thrilling romantic comedy to discover how it all unfolds. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting, humorous, and heartfelt stories from across the stars. Drop your comments below. Do you think Jonah and Kathira make a perfect couple? Let us know your thoughts and tell us where you're tuning in from. They always told me that working interplanetary cargo runs would be uneventful. Load the containers, sign a few documents, and drift through space until you dock at your destination. But I never expected that a careless scheduling mix-up, an over-the-top royal party, and a planet addicted to luxury could turn my quiet life upside down. My name is Jonah Park, a simple shipping operative from Earth. I specialize in out-of-the-way deliveries. Everything from gourmet cheese wheels destined for the moons of Sirius to genetically modified houseplants for a greenhouse on Mars. Heck, I even once transported neon-colored iguanas for some eccentric zoo on Titan. But nothing had ever prepared me for the fiasco on the pleasure planet Arvenia. It all started one evening, or maybe it was morning, space-time zones are tricky, when I'd worked 3 back-to-back cargo runs and collapsed into an empty container for a quick nap. You can guess what happened next. The doors locked behind me, the starship's automated system loaded the container into the hold, and I woke up mid-transit with zero clue where we were headed. By the time I pried the hatch open from the inside, we'd already landed, offloading cargo onto a massive docking platform that looked more like a nightclub than a shipping bay. Light displays pulsed in fluorescent pinks and greens. Exotic music throbbed through the deck plates. And let's not forget the line of staff members, dressed in flamboyant gowns, cheering as each cargo crate emerged. I stumbled out, dusty from hours of dozing in that cramped container, and locked eyes with a swirl of alien and human hybrids. Their expressions ranged from delight to confusion. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a pair of tall figures wearing shimmering white suits march straight for me. Before I could protest, they whisked me away onto a hover platform. My attempts at explaining I was just a lowly cargo worker were drowned out by the pounding bass of electronic music and the cheers of the crowd. Little did I know I was about to become the unexpected special delivery at one of Arvenia's most exclusive galas. Arvenia was renowned across the galaxy for its nonstop festivities. Lavish parties, wine flowing from marble fountains, and the kind of opulent architecture that puts a Terran palace to shame. I'd heard rumors, stories from other cargo runners about how some folks arrived for a weekend and stayed for a lifetime. The planet was basically an interstellar Las Vegas, but with advanced robotics, crystal spires that danced in the wind, and well-bred aristocrats who adored scandal as much as they loved luxury. The hover platform I was on zipped through the city's upper levels, weaving among spindly towers wrapped in neon vines. My 2 escorts never removed their mirrored visors, nor did they answer my flood of panicked questions. I tried everything. Where are you taking me? I'm just a shipping guy, not a performer. But their silence was unyielding, as if they were waiting for the perfect moment to hand me off to whomever was in charge. When the platform slowed to a halt, we were in front of a colossal golden opal gate that shimmered beneath 3 artificial suns. A swirl of other guests in extravagant outfits pressed forward, all jostling for position at what appeared to be a checkpoint. Paparazzi-like cameras hovered, snapping pictures. Holographic banners floated overhead, proclaiming, "Welcome to the Grand Engagement Gala of Lady Kathira." The name meant nothing to me at the time, but I'd soon learn it carried serious weight around here. As I stepped off, I caught glimpses of some bizarre procession. Men and women, not all human, carrying ornate gift boxes, leading exotic pets on diamond-studded leashes, or balancing improbable headdresses. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement. It felt as if every wealthy scion from every corner of the galaxy had gathered to witness some kind of major event. One of the silent escorts nudged me forward, urging me into a marble foyer that connected to a shimmering ballroom. And that was when everything went haywire. A swirl of hushes, gasps, and squeals arose from the crowd as heads turned in my direction, as though they'd been waiting for me, or at least for whoever they thought I was. The ornate ballroom sprawled like a labyrinth. My first thought was that it looked like a pastel utopia come to life. The floor was crystal clear, revealing a shallow pool of luminescent fish swirling beneath my feet, and sculpted pillars formed from swirling pink stone soared overhead. Breathtaking chandeliers hung from the dome ceiling, each shaped like cascading waterfalls of light. Waitstaff glided about, offering champagne flutes that seemed to float on trays. The hum of conversation, the swirl of pastel gowns, and the subtle interplay of orchestral and electronic music triggered a sense of vertigo. Suddenly, a hush fell across the crowd as a tall, regal figure swept in from the left. She wore a gown that sparkled like stardust, and a constellation of glittering ornaments crowned her lavender hair. Though she appeared strikingly human, her skin boasted a pearlescent quality that shimmered under the lights. Her eyes flicked in my direction, blazing with an intensity that made my heart stutter. The woman paused, beckoning me closer with a single arched brow. I managed to stammer out something about being lost, about not belonging here. She pressed a slender finger to my lips, a gesture that halted my protests. "I am Lady Kathira," she said, her voice carrying an almost musical lilt. "You made quite the entrance." Before I could correct her assumptions, a short, excitable servant burst through the crowd. He held a clipboard glowing with holographic text and bowed so low his nose nearly grazed the floor. "My lady," he said breathlessly, "your fiancé has arrived from Cargo Bay 9, just as scheduled. His name is—" The servant glanced at the data. "Jonah Park." Fiancé? My pulse skyrocketed. Any attempt to speak was blocked by Lady Kathira's sudden, mesmerizing smile. "Oh, Jonah, finally you're here!" She clasped my hand in hers, turning to the audience, and declared, "The rumors were true. My fiancé has traveled halfway across the galaxy to be at my side." Applause thundered around us. Bright lights flashed, and I realized the entire gathering believed that I was her betrothed. I found myself swallowed up in a world of confusion, glitz, and the swirl of Lady Kathira's undeniable charm. The next half hour was a fever dream of well-wishers, camera drones buzzing overhead, and excited murmurs. Kathira introduced me to lords and ladies from various star systems, tall reptilian creatures with shimmering scales, slender amphibious dignitaries who spoke with underwater echoes, even some haughty Terran aristocrats who gazed at me as if I were a puzzle to be solved. Everyone wanted a piece of the man who had apparently been so bold as to arrive unannounced in Cargo Bay 9. I kept trying to whisper to Kathira, "This is a mistake. I'm just a cargo worker." But the flow of congratulatory handshakes and air kisses never ceased. She shot me a warning glance, a silent plea to play along. And to be fair, I couldn't exactly stage a dramatic exit in front of these hundreds of prying eyes, not without causing a meltdown, or worse, a diplomatic incident. My mind raced. Who was she, and why did she need to pass me off as her fiancé? At one point, I managed to duck behind a floral arrangement of glowing, shifting blossoms that seemed half robotic. Kathira slipped beside me, exasperated, but still maintaining that regal composure. "Jonah, or whatever your real name is, you have to help me," she hissed. "My family arranged for me to marry some off-world baron I've never even met. The real fiancé was supposed to arrive from an Earth colony to keep up a facade, but something must have gone wrong. You're here instead." Her voice was tinged with desperation. "If you don't play the role, they'll replace you with someone else, and you might never leave Arvenia. My father is not known for giving second chances." At first, I thought she was exaggerating, but the fear in her eyes told me otherwise. Something about the entire scenario reeked of half-truths and hidden agendas. Lady Kathira herself seemed caught in a political trap, and now I was the unwitting pawn whose presence might be the only thing keeping her from losing all autonomy in a forced marriage. With a resigned sigh, I realized I was in too deep. I nodded, forcing a gracious smile on my face as the next wave of admirers approached. We were ushered to an elevated dais at the far end of the ballroom, where the hostess, a formidable woman with elaborate crystal hairpieces, was waiting. She introduced herself as Marchioness Valore, Kathira's aunt. With an approving nod toward me, she motioned for the entire hall to grow silent. Spotlights converged on us. Friends, intergalactic dignitaries, beloved guests, Valora announced. We gather tonight to celebrate the engagement of my dearest niece, Lady Cathera of Arvenia, to Jonah Park of Earth. May this union herald a new era of alliance and prosperity. Thunderous applause erupted, and the floating cameras closed in on my face, broadcasting my every reaction to the galaxy, it seemed. Cathera leaned in, whispering, "If you value your freedom, please keep smiling." I did my best, though my cheeks already ached from forced cheer. As the ceremony concluded, a throng of musicians struck up a lively piece that blended classical strings with synthesized cosmic beats. People began to dance, swirling in iridescent fabrics and shining suits, while Cathera and I made our way off the dais. At once, we were mobbed by well-wishers offering toasts. A bored-looking Terran Baron in a velvet cloak gave me a congratulatory pat on the shoulder, glancing at Cathera's figure with obvious envy. Meanwhile, a pair of short-statured aliens with swirling tattoos on their scalps offered us sizzling cups of neon liquid that smelled suspiciously like fruit and engine oil. Just when I thought the crowd might devour us entirely, a stern presence approached. An older man with the same lavender-tinged hair as Cathera but sprinkled with silver. His dark eyes bore the weight of authority. My pulse quickened. This had to be Cathera's father. And the look on his face made it clear he wasn't fully convinced of my story. Lord Castellan was not a man of idle chatter. He stared at me for an uncomfortable span of seconds, as though evaluating a piece of unproven machinery. "Jonah Park, from Earth," he began, his tone measured. "I've heard much about our prospective ally. My daughter speaks highly of your qualities." His gaze flicked to Cathera, who stood stiffly beside me, her posture betraying more tension than she'd shown all evening. I steeled myself to answer, but she quickly intervened. "Father, we mustn't keep you. Jonah and I were just heading to the private lounge for a moment of respite." She looped her arm through mine, a blatant yet polite strategy to whisk me away from further interrogation. But Castellan didn't budge. He placed a hand on my shoulder, smiling in a way that sent a chill down my spine. "A private lounge indeed. I assume you two have much to discuss." He squeezed my shoulder, eyes narrowing. "Understand, Jonah, that while Arvenia is a haven of enjoyment and festivity, we don't take kindly to deception in matters of state. I trust your intentions are pure." The unspoken threat weighed heavily in the air. All I could do was nod and mutter something noncommittal. Castellan's expression remained unreadable as he stepped back, allowing us to pass. Cathera let out a small exhalation of relief once we were out of his immediate sight. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. We hurried through the crowd, collecting compliments and curious glances until we reached a side corridor draped with shimmering tapestries. One showed an ancient Arvenian queen subduing a cosmic whale. Another depicted a star-laden battlefield. Cathera pulled me under an archway that led to a quieter area, where the music's pounding bass softened into a distant throb. "Forgive Father's intensity," she said, "but he's the kind of man who sees betrayal everywhere. If he finds out you're not the real fiancé, it'll be catastrophic for both of us." Seeing my frown, Cathera bit her lip. I wish we'd met under different circumstances, Jonah. You seem like a decent man. I never intended to trap you." I could see genuine regret in her eyes, overshadowing the glitz of everything else. We slipped into a secluded parlor lined with plush seating and decorated with hanging crystal orbs. Soft, luminescent plants dangled from the ceiling, casting a comforting glow over the cushions. The moment we sank onto one such cushion, I felt the tension in my shoulders melt, only to be replaced by the throbbing confusion in my head. Cathera massaged her temples. "This entire engagement is a sham forced by my family. I was supposed to be matched with a distant Earth aristocrat, someone who'd gone through official channels to be recognized as my fiancé." She gave a half-hearted laugh. "They wanted me to have a suitor from Earth for some politically advantageous reason. Bridging cultural gaps, forging alliances, all that nonsense. But something must have gone awry with the real fiancé's transport. And now here you are." I nodded slowly. "So you're telling me they basically used some matchmaking service? Or a prearranged union, like old Earth monarchy deals?" She grimaced. "Exactly. My father's convinced an Earth alliance will cement his hold on trade routes, and I was just a chess piece on his game board. She paused, glancing at me. Then you show up, courtesy of cosmic irony. I let out a long breath. Look, I'm no aristocrat. The only route I care about is the one that gets me back to Earth or back to my shipping gig. But you've got to help me figure out how to break this news gently. Because if your father is as ruthless as he seems, the moment he senses a lie, I might not leave this planet in one piece. Her eyes locked with mine. I promise I'll find a way to protect you. But for now, Jonah, we have to maintain appearances, at least in public. If we can convince my father you're a suitable fiancé for a little while, maybe we'll buy enough time to plan a real solution. She sounded both fearful and determined, like someone who hated deception yet felt forced to wield it for survival. Reluctantly, I agreed. After all, she was risking just as much, if not more, than I was. Together, we braced ourselves to step back into the main festivities, where rumors and curious gazes awaited us in every corner. When we returned to the ballroom, it seemed even more crowded than before. Or perhaps that was just the spotlight effect of people whispering, "There they are," or "Look, the new Earth fiancé," as we walked by. Every swirl of a gown, every tilt of a champagne flute seemed directed at us. The attention was suffocating. Yet Kathira maintained a radiant mask, nodding politely at guests while I tried to keep from stumbling in my borrowed shoes. A loud chime rang from overhead, signaling the start of what Arvenians called the reverence dance, a tradition in which couples signaled their unity before the public. My stomach flipped. The lights dimmed and the music shifted into a haunting melody played on elongated string instruments. Usually I'd excuse myself from any forced dance, but tonight I had no choice. Kathira led me onto a raised dance floor where hundreds of onlookers gathered around. The floor glowed in time with the music, and wisps of illuminated fog curled around our ankles. She placed her hand on my shoulder and I held her waist, trying not to look like a complete fool. The hush of the crowd pressed in, but Kathira guided me gracefully, whispering instructions. Left foot, now turn. Keep your posture. Despite a few missteps, we managed to create the semblance of a regal performance. Are you cheering for Jonah to master this alien waltz? Or do you predict he'll step on someone's foot in the next 10 seconds? Drop a comment with your guess. Gradually, I found a rhythm with Kathira. Between the swirling lights and the mesmerizing music, there was a moment when I almost forgot about the ruse. Her gaze was intense, an odd mixture of anxiety, gratitude, and something else I couldn't quite name. As the final notes of the dance resonated, the entire hall erupted in applause. Cameras whirred overhead, capturing every angle. Kathira pressed closer, presenting an image of a blissful couple. For a fleeting second, I felt the corners of my mouth lift in a genuine smile. And that was when trouble arrived. A tall figure wearing a serpentine cape stepped onto the dance floor, applauding slowly with a smirk that made my skin crawl. His name was Lord Calvus, a slender, statuesque man with irises that glowed a sharp gold. An alien aristocrat from the planet Velatrix, if the swirling crest on his cape was any indication. He bowed dramatically at Kathira, then eyed me like I was a curious sideshow. "Congratulations, my lady," he said in a voice laced with sarcasm. "I see you found yourself quite the Earth specimen." A hush spread through the immediate crowd, many stepping back as if to grant us space for confrontation. Kathira stiffened at the man's presence, her knuckles tightening on my arm. "Lord Calvus, I wasn't aware you'd be attending," she said, fighting to keep her tone polite. Calvus offered a razor-thin smile. "I wouldn't miss the engagement of the century, though I must confess I expected a more refined fiancé, considering your father's aspirations." My heartbeat kicked up. Clearly, there was no love lost between Kathira and this man. From the corners of my vision, I noticed Castellan watching us from across the room, expression unreadable. Meanwhile, the audience of gossip-hungry aristocrats formed a half circle around the dance floor, enthralled by this unfolding drama. I tried to break the tension, adopting a casual drawl. "I may not have the refinement you're used to, but I have an excellent shipping record, if that's worth anything." A few onlookers tittered while Calvus cocked an eyebrow. Shipping indeed. "And how might that experience serve Arvenia's political ambitions?" he asked, the sneer in his tone barely hidden. Before I could reply, Kathira interjected. Lord Calvis, it's so kind of you to offer your commentary on my personal life. But you see, Jonah here is more than meets the eye. She squeezed my arm pointedly, as if urging me to keep quiet. Our families have already approved, so unless you wish to question my father's judgment, I suggest you find another topic of conversation. Calvis's golden gaze flickered dangerously. He bowed once more, but the sarcasm remained. Indeed, my apologies for prying. With that, he turned on his heel, drifting back into the throng of curious guests. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of his meddling. As the evening wore on, Kathira and I navigated the party's multiple layers. From the grand buffet, where 1,000 alien delicacies gleamed under strobe lights, to the rooftop balcony that offered a panoramic view of Arvenia's neon skyline. All around, laughter and music mingled in a hypnotic swirl. Still, tension clung to us like static electricity. Lord Calvis's intrusion had cast a shadow, hinting that someone might actively be trying to expose me. And in the background, Castellan and other watchful eyes reminded me how high the stakes truly were. By the time we reached a quieter corner of the balcony, I could hardly feel my feet. Kathira looked exhausted too, though she maintained a poised facade. He'll try again, she whispered, leaning on the marble railing. Calvis has always coveted my family's influence. I suspect he aims to humiliate us or find some breach in this engagement. I nodded. Then I guess we just have to keep looking convincing, right? My attempt at levity felt hollow, even to me. The truth was, I wanted out. As gilded as Arvenia was, the place felt like a glimmering cage. But each time I considered announcing that I was a nobody from Earth's shipping district, I pictured myself banished to some prison cell or forced into silence for the sake of this planet's politics. Kathira must have sensed my discomfort. She placed a hand on my sleeve. I promise, Jonah, I'm working on a solution. I've got a friend in the Interplanetary Bureau who might help arrange safe passage for you under the guise of a pre-wedding diplomatic tour. If we can stall for a week, maybe less, we'll quietly end this charade before my father finalizes any legal documents. Do you think a sneaky escape plan will work, or will they get caught in a scandal of galactic proportions? Type 1 for stealthy success, 2 for cosmic fiasco. Relief flickered through me, but it was tempered by the knowledge that a week of pretense was a long time under the watchful eyes of lords, ladies, and that suspicious Calvis. Still, I offered Kathira a weary smile. All right, princess, let's hold it together. The next morning brought a jarring shift from the previous night's grandeur. I awoke in a luxurious guest chamber, complete with a bed that hovered inches off the floor. Soft, pastel walls emanated a gentle glow that reminded me of a perpetually calm sunrise. Yet, for all the comfort, I felt the weight of our predicament the instant I opened my eyes. A servant, some sort of humanoid android with an unnervingly polite smile, provided me with a daily schedule. Brunch with the family at 10, a tire fitting at noon, a formal tea with the city's high council at 3, and a dinner featuring a galaxy-renowned singer at 7. My head swam. Back on Earth, I was used to punching in at a cargo depot, scanning barcodes, and maybe grabbing coffee on my break. This new itinerary read like a social gauntlet devised by an entire court of bored aristocrats. During brunch, Kathira guided me through the bifurcation of Arvenian dining, how to hold the diamond-edged cutlery, how to acknowledge a toast without finishing your entire drink in one gulp, and how to politely refuse the tentacled dish known as slaric eels. Hovering attendants topped off our crystal goblets with sweetly pungent fruit nectar. Her father, seated at the head of a long table, made occasional remarks about the importance of Earth-Arvenia alliances. Meanwhile, I forced small talk with Kathira's cousin, who discussed fashion, cosmic horse racing, and politics with the enthusiasm of a tabloid reporter. I caught a glimpse of Calvis lurking on a distant balcony. It seemed he had an open invitation to the estate's events. My nerves prickled. The man was undoubtedly plotting something. Kathira, too, seemed on edge, stiffening whenever his name arose in conversation. After brunch, she and I retreated to a private lounge so she could teach me the finer points of Arvenian courtesy. Slight bows, coded phrases, and the refusal to blink more than twice while receiving a compliment. Apparently, blinking thrice implied suspicion. The more I learned, the more ludicrous it felt. Yet I had to admit, If it kept me from being exposed and possibly detained, I'd adopt whatever weird custom they threw at me. Midway through our practice session, a palace guard arrived to inform us that Lady Kathira's father wanted an audience in his study. My heart lurched. What fresh interrogation awaited this time? Kathira and I followed the guard down a spiral corridor that resembled an aquarium turned upside down. Shimmering water tubes lined the walls, each containing exotic fish that pulsed with phosphorescent light. Eventually, we reached a set of doors carved from black stone. The guard ushered us inside. Lord Castellan's study was subdued compared to the rest of the palace. Rich wooden shelves, real wood, probably imported from some Earth-like colony, lined the walls filled with antique books and star charts. The air smelled of old parchment and a whiff of something spicy, incense perhaps. Castellan sat behind a wide desk, hands steepled beneath his chin. He waved us forward. "So, my daughter and her future husband," he greeted, voice rife with that stern paternal undercurrent. "I trust you're settling in, Jonah." I cleared my throat. "Yes, sir, the palace is magnificent." A half-truth, but no need to mention the claustrophobia that accompanied all this opulence. He nodded slowly, then flipped through a stack of documents on his desk. "You know, we have extensive genealogical records for nearly every noble earthline connected to Arvenia. I attempted to locate your lineage. Oddly enough, the files seem incomplete." An icy jolt ran through me. Kathira tensed. "Father, Jonah's background is somewhat unorthodox. He was raised in a remote outpost. Correct, my dear?" She turned to me pointedly. I swallowed, playing along. "Yes, in a remote region with limited data connectivity. Our records might be patchy." Castellan arched a brow. "Interesting. I'll have my archivist do more thorough research." Another pregnant pause. "You must understand, we only want the best for Kathira. If there's anything questionable in your background, I'd prefer to learn of it now, rather than have some scandal erupt at an inconvenient moment." I forced a polite smile, ignoring the sweat gathering on my palms. "Of course I understand. Nothing to hide," I lied through my teeth, wishing I had a far better cover story than remote outpost kid. We emerged from the study shaken but still in one piece. Kathira led me out to a secluded veranda overlooking an immense garden where luminous flowers and floating vines drifted in the breeze. She sighed heavily. "My father's not done. He'll dig deeper, and every day we risk someone discovering your real identity, especially that meddling Calvis." I leaned on the railing, watching tiny hummingbird-like creatures flit between blossoms. "So, about your friend in the Interplanetary Bureau? Any progress? Because I'm not sure how many more half-truths I can spin." She glanced at a sleek communicator in her hand, frustration evident. "I'm still waiting for a reply. Apparently there's some bureaucratic delay, but I promise, Jonah, I'll get you out." Her gaze flickered to the horizon. "I only hope we can do it without leaving me in a worse trap." "It's not fair," I murmured. "You deserve to choose your own path, not be forced into marriage for political reasons. Maybe once I'm safe, I can help you too." She offered a rueful smile. "How gallant. The captive fiancé wants to rescue the princess." She turned away, shoulders rigid. "But it's sweet, in a naive sort of way." Our conversation was cut short by the sound of approaching footsteps. A young attendant announced that we were invited, more like compelled, to attend a small but important meeting with the High Council that afternoon. Great, more formalities. My entire day seemed booked with social obligations I barely understood. Kathira's grip tightened on her communicator. "We'll have to keep playing our roles," she said. "Stay close, but not too close. Blend in, but leave an impression. It's an art form, trust me." I must have looked skeptical because she patted my shoulder. "Don't worry, Jonah," she teased. "I won't let you drown in Arvenian pomp." She paused, letting her hand linger. "It's strange, but for all the lies, I'm almost relieved you ended up here. The real fiancé? I heard he was a conceited snob. At least with you, we stand a chance at genuine cooperation." I tried to grin, ignoring the knots in my stomach. "Happy to be your random cargo guy in shining armor." We arrived at the High Council chambers in the city's administrative district. This part of Arvenia looked more austere. Towering spires of shimmering stone replaced the flashy neon, and wide boulevards were dotted with carefully tended trees that glowed faintly in the evening dusk. Kathira explained that the council mostly handled legislative issues, trade agreements, disputes, and so forth. But they also had influence over marital alliances, especially those involving royalty and other star systems. Inside, the council hall was spacious, lined with carved pillars representing the planet's founding families. A semicircle of robed figures sat behind an ornate bench, each wearing a distinctive mask. The masks were said to symbolize impartiality. I found them downright eerie. At the center stood the council's head, a woman with platinum hair and eyes the color of an electric storm. They asked a flurry of questions about my background, Earth, and whether my betrothal to Kathira would serve Arvania's interests. Kathira did most of the talking, weaving a story about how we'd met through interplanetary cultural programs. She framed it as a romantic but beneficial union that would open new trade routes. I tried to nod at the right moments, discreetly memorizing the details so I wouldn't contradict her later. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Lord Calvus lurking in a corridor, no doubt waiting to overhear something he could exploit. The tension climbed, especially when the council pressed me about my lineage. My carefully rehearsed lines about a remote outpost returned, though I nearly fumbled a date or two. Kathira covered for me, gracefully, pointing out how Earth's data grids can be patchy in outlying zones. Eventually, the council murmured among themselves, then stated they would review the evidence and pass a final judgment on the legitimacy of the engagement. Within a few days, my heart hammered. A few days? That was hardly comforting. If they suspected any falsification, they could drag me into a public scandal, or worse. As we bowed and left the chamber, Kathira clutched my hand. "Stay calm," she whispered. "We might still get that bureau contact to respond. We just need to survive until then." Outside the council hall, the open-air plaza was serene, with evening light reflecting off polished marble walkways. But the calm shattered when a small group of reporters spotted us. They rushed over, brandishing floating microphones. "Lady Kathira, Jonah Park," they called, launching into a barrage of questions about the rumored alliance. I tried to keep my expression neutral while Kathira offered diplomatic, if vague, replies. Then a news drone zipped through the crowd, projecting a holographic feed in midair. An anonymous tip had come through, suggesting that Jonah Park might be an imposter. A dull swirl of speculative headlines popped up. Is Kathira's fiancé a fraud? Earth engagement a political stunt? The reporters went wild, turning their mics on me, demanding explanations. My stomach dropped. Calvus must have triggered these rumors. Kathira grasped my arm. "No comment," she said firmly, steering me away from the throng. However, the damage was done. The entire plaza buzzed with tension as we hurried back to our transport. If the media latched onto the notion I was a fake, it would become nearly impossible to hold this charade together. Will they manage to outwit Calvus's smear campaign, or will the media frenzy tear them apart? Type 1 if you believe in a cunning comeback, 2 if you foresee a meltdown. Mom, in the safety of our plush, driverless hover car, Kathira's eyes gleamed with a desperate resolve. "We must act fast. My father's going to see that broadcast if he hasn't already. If the council suspects us, it'll be all over the news in hours. We need official proof from your side, Jonah, something that says you're from the right background. But since we can't produce that out of thin air, we need that bureau contact more than ever." I exhaled a shaky breath, glancing out the window as the cityscape blurred by in streaks of luminous color. "All right, so we either conjure a miracle or risk being labeled criminals. No pressure." I tried to keep my tone sarcastic, but I couldn't hide the worry creeping into my voice. Kathira nodded, resting her head against the seat. "I'm truly sorry, Jonah. I never wanted to drag you into Arvania's twisted politics. Hang on for just a little longer." Over the next day, the palace's atmosphere grew tense. Servants whispered about the news leak. Courtiers cast suspicious glances, and my every move felt monitored by hidden cameras or prying eyes. Kathira and I stuck to our plan, behave publicly as the perfect betrothed couple, laugh at jokes we didn't find funny, attend dinners that felt more like interrogations, and slip away whenever possible to check if her bureau contact had responded. But there was no word. During an extravagant lunch in the greenhouse pavilion, where floating flora glowed with every footstep, a hush fell when Lord Calvus sauntered in. He strolled right up to me with a mocking grin. "Well, Jonah, how wonderful to see you enjoying our dear planet. It must be quite different from your remote outpost, hmm?" I forced a polite nod. Indeed, it's quite the change. He clasped his hands behind his back, stepping closer. I can't help but wonder if you visited Earth's capital recently. Heard they have a spectacular star bridge near the White Cliffs of Dover. A famous Earth monument, isn't it? His tone was dripping with challenge. He wanted to trip me up, to prove my ignorance. My mind raced. I'd heard of Dover's White Cliffs in old Earth tourism ads, but a star bridge? Thankfully, Kathira interjected. Why, Jonah's family wasn't from that region, Lord Calvis. You know how large Earth is. She placed a hand on my shoulder, a subtle sign for me to keep quiet. Calvis smirked but didn't press further. Instead, he pivoted to chat with another noble, leaving me reeling. Once the lunch concluded, we retreated to a lesser-used corridor. Kathira's expression was grim. He's setting traps. I just know he's gathering enough circumstantial evidence to sink us. She rubbed her arms as if chilled. I'm starting to think we won't last until the council's decision unless we act decisively. I nodded, jaws clenched. So what's next? We can't stay in this limbo forever. Her eyes flickered with a determined light. There's a masquerade ball tomorrow night, a major social event. Everyone in high society will be there, including Calvis and my father. It might be our last chance to overshadow these rumors by making a public spectacle that cements our credibility, or we stage an escape amidst the chaos. The masquerade ball took place in a grand hall reminiscent of an opera house, with multiple tiers of balconies stacked above a central dance floor. Pulsing chandeliers cast fractal patterns across the crowd, and swirling confetti drifted from the ceiling. Guests donned intricate masks studded with jewels or shaped like exotic creatures. The resulting display was mesmerizing, if not slightly overwhelming. Kathira wore a stunning mask shaped like a phoenix, its feathers shimmering in pink and gold. I donned a simpler piece, a sleek silver mask that partially concealed my features. It offered me at least a momentary sense of anonymity. Outside, rumors were running wild that we'd soon announce wedding details or present official documents proving my Earth lineage. Inside, we had no plan except to wait for an opening. Half an hour into the festivities, a majestic trumpet fanfare announced the arrival of Lord Castellan. He descended a sweeping staircase flanked by advisors. The moment he caught sight of us, he beckoned. My chest tightened. This could be it, the moment he demanded evidence we didn't have. Kathira and I approached hesitantly. Father, she began, voice careful, it's good to see you here. He studied us through his mask, an ornate piece depicting a stern griffin. I trust you're enjoying the evening, though I'm sure you're aware the council meets tomorrow to finalize their evaluation. If anything about your union is questionable, now is the time to come clean. His gaze settled on me, cold and probing. Before I could fumble a response, the palace doors burst open. A cacophony of gasps filled the room as an entire entourage strode in, flamboyantly dressed retinue carrying banners from an Earth colony. At the head of this processional was a tall, impeccably groomed man with slicked back hair and a regal tux that glimmered like polished steel. He wore no mask. Lady Kathira, he declared, arms spread, your fiancé has arrived. A shocked murmur rippled through the crowd. My heart hammered. The real fiancé. This was the man who had presumably been scheduled to arrive all along. And now, like some star actor arriving after the play's climax, he was here to ruin everything. For a moment, the ballroom seemed suspended in a hush. Then, with excruciating slowness, every masked face swung toward me. Kathira went rigid, her phoenix mask unable to hide the terror in her eyes. Lord Castellan snapped his gaze from the newcomer to me and back again, confusion warring with fury in his expression. Only Lord Calvis, lurking near the edge of the crowd, appeared downright gleeful. The newly arrived real fiancé approached Lady Kathira with confident strides, ignoring my presence entirely. Bowing low, he took her hand in an overly practiced gesture of reverence. I am Maxwell Aldridge, rightful heir of the Aldridge shipping dynasty on Earth. My deepest apologies for my late arrival. Transit complications, you see. He cast a dismissive glance at me. Who, pray tell, is this impostor? Lord Castellan turned on me with lethal calm. Yes, Jonah, do enlighten us. The tension was a physical force. My mind raced. There was no plausible explanation for my presence, that wouldn't unravel everything. Some of the crowd murmured in disbelief while others snapped photos or live streamed the unfolding drama. I could almost taste the scandal in the air. Kathira tried to speak, but words failed. Meanwhile, Maxwell puffed up, addressing the entire hall. It appears, dear lady, that you've been subjected to an unscrupulous fraud. Fear not. I'm here now to fulfill the arrangement our families established. He shot me a sneer, and I shall see this Jonah Park punished for his deceit. Desperation flared in my gut. I stole a glance at Kathira. Even behind her mask, her eyes were brimmed with panic. We'd come so far in the charade, all would be undone in an instant. I expected her father to call the guards any second. My instincts screamed to run, but that felt hopelessly naive. Where would I even go? The starport was on the other side of the city, and I had no official travel pass. Even if I made it that far, they'd label me a criminal. Yet, in that charged moment, something snapped within Kathira. Instead of cowering, she ripped off her mask and faced her father. Enough, she declared, voice trembling but resolute. I will decide who I am engaged to, not a contract from star systems away. Gasps rose from the crowd as Lady Kathira stepped forward, eyes blazing. Maxwell sputtered, "But your father's agreement." She silenced him with a withering look. "Your tardiness alone shows how little respect you had for this arrangement. You're no fiancé of mine." Lord Castellan advanced on her, mask overshadowing his stern features. "Daughter, your disobedience is disgraceful. All of Arvenia stands to benefit from this union. You cannot simply throw it away on a whim, and certainly not for a stowaway." His glare flicked to me, brimming with contempt. Kathira drew herself up, shoulders squared. "Father, you taught me that Arvenia thrives on loyalty and authenticity. You wanted to marry me off to a man we barely know, all for political gain. But Jonah, despite our initial deception, has shown me more genuine consideration than any suitor you've paraded my way. He had a choice, to exploit this or run away. He stayed to protect me." Truth be told, I wasn't sure if I'd done anything particularly heroic, but her words resonated, surprising me as much as everyone else. The crowd was torn between scandalized horror and awe. Whispers skittered among them. Is she defying her father? Could the Earth-shipping boy be the real fiancé after all? Meanwhile, Maxwell's face darkened with indignation. "This is outrageous. I demand—" "Demand what?" Kathira snapped, spinning to face him. "You claim you arrived late due to transit complications? How convenient that you appear precisely when it benefits you most. I see no reason to honor an agreement with someone who fails to treat me or Arvenia with respect." A hush sank over the room as Lord Castellan studied his daughter. Beneath his mask, I sensed a fierce battle between paternal authority and a reluctant admiration for her boldness. Time crawled. My heart pounded so violently I expected everyone in the room to hear it. Finally, he turned to Maxwell. "Perhaps you should speak with my advisors. We need clarity on these developments." Sensing the partial dismissal, Maxwell bowed stiffly and retreated, his retinue trailing behind like disappointed peacocks. Kathira exhaled shakily, gripping my arm for support. The tension in the room was explosive, but at least for now, the immediate crisis had passed. The question remained, what next? In the days that followed, word spread across Arvenia that Lady Kathira had publicly rebuked her official fiancé in favor of the mysterious Earthmen. Despite Lord Castellan's fury, the High Council found no immediate reason to imprison me, especially since the scandal had taken on a life of its own. Press coverage exploded, with headlines like, "Kathira's bold choice," and "Stowaway becomes sensation." Ironically, the swirl of media attention shielded us. Any attempt to punish me harshly risked painting the royal family as tyrants in the eyes of the public. Privately, Kathira and I knew our arrangement was still precarious, but a stroke of fortune arrived when her bureau contact finally responded. Within hours, documents were processed to allow me a diplomatic leave from Arvenia to handle personal matters on Earth. Kathira could join me, if she chose, under the pretense of finalizing wedding logistics. In a quiet corner of the palace, she looked at me with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. "I might go with you, Jonah, at least to see what Earth is really like, beyond the illusions my father fed me. Maybe from there, we'll figure out a future that's ours alone to decide." I nodded, a rush of gratitude rising in my chest. This entire ordeal started with a cosmic mistake, my accidental presence in Cargo Bay 9. But it had uncovered something neither of us had foreseen. A bond forged under false pretenses, yet surprisingly real in its mutual respect and trust. 3 days later, we stood on the gleaming starport tarmac, the same place where I'd first awakened in the cargo container. Except this time, the hush of the early morning hours replaced the fanfare and neon. A sleek spaceship waited to carry us away from the prying eyes of Arvenia, at least for a while. Kathira took my hand gently. "You ready?" she asked, eyes shining with both excitement and trepidation. I squeezed her fingers in return. "No," I admitted with a half smile, but that's never stopped me before. Together we stepped into the ship, uncertain of what the next chapter held, only that we wouldn't be locked into anyone else's destiny but our own. As the engines roared and the vessel lifted off, my heart pounded with a mixture of relief, anticipation, and the lingering wonder of how one misplaced shipping container could spin into a love story that defied everything we knew. Thank you for reading this interstellar romantic comedy. If you enjoyed watching Jonah and Kathira navigate cosmic chaos in search of freedom and choice, share your thoughts below. Maybe you'd do the same if you landed on a planet like Arvania by mistake. Or would you run for the nearest exit? And that's how Jonah and Kathira's crazy adventure began, with a misplaced nap, and ended up shaking an entire planet's society. But their journey isn't over yet. Do you think Jonah and Kathira will finally find happiness together on Earth? Or will the complications of interstellar politics catch up with them again? If you love this story, remember to hit the subscribe button to help our channel grow, and stay tuned for more fascinating tales of romance and adventure. Comment below your predictions for Jonah and Kathira's future, and let us know what you'd do if you found yourself in Jonah's shoes. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next intergalactic adventure.